The golden evening light streamed through the lakeside wedding venue as Lily Bennett stood at the altar, her white dress catching the sunset's glow. Her hands trembled slightly as she recited her vows to James, her soon-to-be husband. "I promise to love you through every season of life," she said, her voice clear and strong. But as she continued, something caught her eye at the back of the venue. A late-arriving guest slipped into the last row. Lily's voice faltered mid-sentence, her face drained of color. The string quartet's melody seemed to fade as she stared, transfixed. "Are you okay?" James whispered, squeezing her hands. But Lily couldn't respond. How could she? The man sitting in the back row, the man with a familiar scar above his eyebrow and silver-flecked temples, was her father. Her father who had drowned in this very lake 10 years ago. Her father whose empty casket they had buried. Her father who was supposed to be dead. Before we dive into the story, let us know where you're watching from. Earlier that day, sunlight had filtered through the gauzy curtains of the bridal suite as Claire Bennett, 48, elegantly dressed in a silver-blue gown, adjusted the vintage pearl hairpin in her daughter's hair. "Something borrowed, something blue," Claire said, her voice catching slightly. "This was your grandmother's. She wore it at her wedding, I wore it at mine, and now it's your turn." Lily, 25, gazed at her reflection. "Do you think Dad would have liked the way everything turned out?" she asked, her eyes meeting her mother's in the mirror. Claire smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "He would have been so proud, sweetheart, so proud to walk you down the aisle." The memories came flooding back as they always did on important days. Daniel's sailing accident 10 years ago, the Coast Guard finding his boat capsized in the lake, the weeks of searching that yielded only his waterlogged wallet and wedding ring, the funeral where Lily, just 15 then, had stood stoic beside her mother as they lowered an empty casket into the ground. Claire had raised Lily alone since then, carrying both roles of mother and father with quiet dignity. She'd built a successful event planning business, made sure Lily completed college, and created a life that honored Daniel's memory without being consumed by grief. "Mom?" Lily's voice pulled Claire back to the present. "Uncle Robert's here. He wants to know if you need anything before he walks me down the aisle." Claire smoothed her daughter's veil. "Just one more minute with my baby girl." They embraced, and Claire inhaled the scent of her daughter's perfume, committing this moment to memory. "Your father would be giving you some profound advice right now," Claire said with a gentle laugh. "Probably something about how marriage is like sailing. You have to work together to navigate the storms." Lily smiled. He and his sailing metaphors. A knock at the door announced Claire's best friend Maggie. "My goodness, you look absolutely radiant," Maggie gushed, entering the room. "Daniel would be bursting with pride today." Claire nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "Yes, he would." She straightened her shoulders. "Now, let's get this beautiful bride to her wedding." The lakeside venue was picture perfect. White chairs arranged in neat rows faced an arch adorned with lilies and roses. Beyond, the lake that had claimed Daniel's life sparkled innocently in the late afternoon sun. Claire had questioned Lily's choice of venue, but her daughter had been adamant. "It's where we spent our happiest days as a family, Mom," Lily had explained. "I want Dad to be part of this somehow." Now, as the string quartet began the processional music, Claire took her seat in the front row. This should have been Daniel's moment, walking his little girl down the aisle, giving her hand to the man she loved. Instead, Robert, Claire's brother, stood proudly beside Lily at the back of the aisle. Claire turned, along with the other guests, to watch her daughter begin her walk. Lily was radiant, her eyes fixed on James waiting at the altar. Claire felt a bittersweet pride swell in her chest. They had made it through the darkest of times, and here was Lily, stepping confidently into her future. The ceremony proceeded beautifully. The officiant spoke of love and commitment. James and Lily exchanged heartfelt vows, but as Lily continued her promises, Claire noticed her daughter's expression change. Her words faltered, her eyes fixed on something, or someone, at the back of the venue. Claire followed her daughter's gaze but couldn't see clearly through the crowd. Whatever had caught Lily's attention had deeply disturbed her. James whispered something to Lily, and after a tense moment, she continued her vows, though she kept glancing back with a haunted expression. After the ceremony, as guests mingled during the cocktail hour before the reception, Claire searched for her daughter. She found Lily near the ladies' room, looking pale and shaken. "Honey, what happened during the ceremony? You looked like you'd seen a ghost." Lily grabbed her mother's arm with surprising force. "Mom, I need you to come with me, now." She pulled Claire into an empty dressing room and closed the door. Claire's heart raced. Had there been some problem with the wedding? Did Lily have second thoughts? "Mom, I need you to stay calm." Lily's voice trembled. "Dad is here." Claire's concern melted into sympathy. "Oh, sweetheart, I know today brings up emotions about your father. I feel it too." "No, Mom," Lily cut her off, her grip tightening on Claire's arms. "Dad is here, alive, with a woman. I saw him." Claire shook her head, her heart aching for her daughter. The stress of the wedding must have triggered some kind of hallucination or wishful thinking. "Lily, We identified his belongings. We buried him. We visited his grave for 10 years. I would know my own father's face, Lily insisted, her voice rising. He has the same scar above his eyebrow from when I hit him with my toy airplane when I was 6. It's him, Mom, I swear to you. Claire studied her daughter's face. Lily wasn't prone to fantasy or delusion. She was practical, grounded, like her mother. The conviction in her eyes was unsettling. Where? Claire finally asked. At the back of the ceremony. He came in late. He's wearing a gray suit. He's with a woman in her 40s. Dark hair, green dress. Claire took a steadying breath. Let me look. I'll prove to you it's just someone who resembles him. But as she spoke, doubts began to creep in. What if? What if by some miracle or nightmare, Daniel had survived? What if he had chosen to stay away? The possibility made her stomach churn. The reception was in full swing when Claire emerged. Guests danced and laughed, unaware of the earthquake shaking her world. She circled the room casually, smiling and accepting congratulations while her eyes scanned for a man fitting Lily's description. And then she saw him. Across the room, at a table near the back, sat Daniel Bennett. Older, with silver streaking his dark hair at the temples, but unmistakably him. Beside him was an elegant woman in her 40s wearing a green dress, leaning close as he whispered something in her ear. Claire froze, her champagne glass nearly slipping from her fingers. The room seemed to tilt. 10 years of grief, of rebuilding, of explaining to Lily why her father wasn't there for her milestones. All of it crystallized into a single, white-hot point of rage. She moved through the crowd mechanically, barely registering the guests who tried to speak to her. Her focus narrowed to the man who had let them mourn him, who had abandoned them, who had the audacity to show up at his daughter's wedding like a ghost made flesh. Daniel saw her approaching. He whispered something to the woman beside him, whose eyes widened in surprise. He stood as Claire reached their table, a complex emotion crossing his face. Guilt, perhaps, or fear, or some terrible mixture of both. "Hello, Claire," he said simply. Without thinking, Claire slapped him hard across the face. The sound cut through the nearby conversations, drawing startled looks. Daniel didn't flinch or retaliate. He simply touched his reddening cheek and nodded slightly, as if accepting this as his due. "How dare you?" Claire whispered, her voice shaking with fury. "How dare you come here?" The woman in the green dress stood now, looking bewildered. "What's going on, Michael?" she asked, looking between Claire and Daniel. "Michael?" Claire repeated, her voice rising. "His name is Daniel. Daniel Bennett. My husband." The woman's face paled. "That's impossible. Michael's wife died of cancer years ago." Claire laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "Well, I'm very much alive. Unlike my husband, who I've been mourning for 10 years. By now, several nearby guests were staring. A security guard approached, sensing trouble. "Is everything all right here, ma'am?" he asked Claire. "No," Claire said, her eyes never leaving Daniel's face. "Everything is not all right. This man," her voice caught. "This man is supposed to be dead." The security guard looked confused, but his training kicked in. "Perhaps we should discuss this somewhere private. There's an office just off the main hall." Daniel nodded. "That would be best." Claire noticed Lily approaching, James protectively at her side. Her daughter's face was a mask of confusion and pain. This should have been the happiest day of her life. "Lily should hear this too," Claire said firmly. "Whatever explanation you have, you owe it to your daughter first." Something flashed in Daniel's eyes at the word daughter. Perhaps shame, perhaps longing. He nodded again. "Vanessa should come as well," he said, gesturing to the woman in green, who looked like she might be sick. "She deserves to know the truth too." As the security guard led them to the private office, Claire caught Maggie's questioning look across the room. Claire gave a small gesture indicating she'd explain later. Right now, she needed answers. She needed to understand how the man she had loved, mourned, and eventually moved past had risen from his watery grave to shatter their carefully rebuilt world. The office door closed behind them, shutting out the reception's music and laughter. Daniel, or Michael, as the woman called him, stood awkwardly in the center of the room. Lily positioned herself beside her mother, both women facing the man they had lost and seemingly found again. "Start talking," Claire demanded, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. Daniel looked at the woman beside him, then back at Claire and Lily. "This is Vanessa," he said quietly. "My wife." Vanessa flinched at the words, her eyes darting between Daniel and the women facing them. "I don't understand," she said, her voice barely audible. "Your name is Michael Pierce. Your wife died of cancer 7 years ago." "No," Daniel said, running a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made Claire's chest ache despite her anger. "My name is Daniel Bennett. I faked my death 10 years ago." The room fell silent, the weight of his confession hanging in the air. "Why?" Lily finally asked, her voice small. "Why would you do that to us?" Daniel's shoulders sagged. "I was in trouble, serious trouble. The investment firm I was working for, we were being investigated for embezzlement. I was looking at 20 years in prison." Claire felt the blood drain from her face. You were stealing money? From your clients? Not exactly, Daniel said. It started as covering for some bad investments. Then it spiraled. I was trying to cover gambling debts. I thought I could fix it before anyone found out, but he trailed off, seeing the disgust on Claire's face. So you decided to die rather than face the consequences. Claire finished for him. You left us to grieve you rather than stand up and take responsibility. I thought I was protecting you both from shame and financial ruin, Daniel said weakly. Protecting us? Claire's voice rose. Do you have any idea what we went through? I had to tell our 15-year-old daughter that her father was never coming home. I had to figure out how to pay the mortgage when our accounts were frozen during the investigation of your death. I had to start a business from nothing to support us. Daniel had the decency to look ashamed. I know. I can't possibly make that right. How did you do it? Lily asked, her analytical mind seeking to understand the mechanics even as her heart was breaking anew. How did we bury you if you didn't die? Daniel explained how he had staged the boating accident, using his knowledge of the lake currents to ensure his empty boat would be found. He had arranged for a new identity through connections he refused to name, becoming Michael Pierce almost overnight. He had escaped to Costa Rica, living there until the investigations into his firm had concluded with his business partner taking most of the blame. 2 years after I left, I met Vanessa in Costa Rica, Daniel continued. She was there on vacation. I told her I was a widower. Vanessa stood abruptly. You told me your wife died of breast cancer, she said, her voice cold with realization. You showed me a picture of Lily and told me she blamed you for not getting her mother to the doctor sooner, that she cut ties with you. Daniel couldn't meet her eyes. I needed a cover story. We have a son, Vanessa said, tears welling in her eyes. Our entire marriage is built on lies. Lily looked up sharply. A son? I have a brother? Daniel nodded. Noah. He's 7. Claire watched as her daughter processed this new information. Not only was her father alive, but she had a half-brother she never knew existed. The betrayal seemed to multiply with each revelation. Why come back now? Claire asked. After all this time, why risk everything by showing up at Lily's wedding? Daniel's eyes softened as he looked at his daughter. I saw the engagement announcement in the Buffalo newspaper online. I couldn't stay away. I've missed so much already. You chose to miss it? Claire corrected him harshly. Every birthday, every Christmas, her high school graduation, her college graduation, you chose not to be there. I know, Daniel whispered. I've made unforgivable choices. Where have you been living? Lily asked suddenly. Rochester, Daniel replied. About an hour from here. Claire felt like she'd been punched. An hour away? For how long? 6 years, Daniel admitted. The realization that he had been so close, living a new life just an hour from their home while they visited an empty grave, sent a wave of nausea through Claire. A knock at the door interrupted them. The wedding coordinator peeked in apologetically. I'm sorry to intrude, but the best man is about to begin toasts. Miss Bennett, they're asking for you and Lily to return to the reception. Claire looked at her daughter, trying to gauge her state of mind. This was Lily's wedding day. Despite the earth-shattering revelations, Claire wouldn't let Daniel ruin this day, too. We'll be right there, Claire assured the coordinator, who nodded and closed the door. Lily straightened her shoulders, so much her mother's daughter in that moment. This is still my wedding day, she said firmly. We're going back out there, and none of this, she gestured around the room, leaves this office until tomorrow. Understood? Daniel nodded, looking both proud of and pained by his daughter's strength. What about us? Vanessa asked, still clearly in shock. Should we leave? Lily hesitated, then shook her head. No, stay. Sit in the back. Don't draw attention. We'll figure the rest out tomorrow. As they prepared to return to the reception, Claire pulled Daniel aside for one final question. Did you ever think about us? Did you ever regret what you did to us? Daniel met her eyes for the first time since she'd confronted him. Every single day, the reception continued like a surreal dream. Claire moved through the crowd, accepting congratulations and well wishes, while the knowledge that Daniel sat at a back table with his new wife burned in her mind. She was drawn back to her event planner training. The show must go on. The client must never see the chaos behind the scenes. Except this wasn't a client's event. It was her daughter's wedding. And the chaos wasn't a missing floral arrangement or late caterer. It was her dead husband returned to life. At the head table, Claire watched Lily maintain a brave face. She was her mother's daughter, compartmentalizing her emotions to deal with the immediate situation. James, oblivious to the family drama unfolding, squeezed his new wife's hand occasionally, attributing her distraction to wedding day nerves. The best man stood, tapping his glass for attention. I want to propose a toast to James and Lily, he began. James has been my best friend since 3rd grade, and I've never seen him as happy as he is with Lily. When he told me he'd found the woman he wanted to spend his life with, I knew she must be really special. Claire glanced at Daniel, who was watching his daughter intently from the back of the room. His eyes never left Lily's face. James often told me how sad he was that he would never get to meet Lily's father, the best man continued, unaware of the bombshell he was dropping. But he said Mr. Bennett must have been an amazing man to have raised such a wonderful daughter. Claire saw Daniel flinch, saw the way his shoulders curved inward as though absorbing a physical blow. Beside him, Vanessa stared at her plate, her face a mask of controlled emotion. So, let's raise a glass to James and Lily, and to those who couldn't be here today but are surely watching over this beautiful couple. To James and Lily, the guests echoed, raising their glasses. Across the room, Claire locked eyes with Daniel. In that moment, she felt nothing but contempt for the man who had let his daughter believe he was watching over her when he had been living just an hour away. The band began playing again, and James led Lily to the dance floor for their first dance as husband and wife. Claire should have been misty-eyed, watching her daughter sway in her new husband's arms. Instead, she was hyper-aware of Daniel's presence, of the disaster waiting to explode once the festivities ended. Maggie appeared at Claire's side, her brow furrowed with concern. "What's going on? Who was that man you were talking to earlier?" Claire hesitated. She couldn't bring herself to say the words out loud. "Not here. Not yet. I'll explain everything tomorrow. I promise. Right now, I just need to get through this reception." Maggie squeezed her hand. "Whatever it is, I'm here for you. You know that." Claire nodded gratefully. "I know. Thank you." As the father-daughter dance approached, a moment Claire and Lily had carefully planned to avoid, with Lily's Uncle Robert standing in, Claire felt a fresh wave of anger. Daniel should have been here for this. He could have been here. He had chosen not to be. Robert led Lily onto the dance floor as butterfly kisses played. Claire watched her brother, who had stepped up in countless ways after Daniel's death, hold Lily with fatherly affection. From the corner of her eye, she saw Daniel watching, his face twisted with regret. The evening continued its surreal progression. Cake was cut, bouquets were tossed, and guests began to depart, unaware of the drama simmering beneath the perfect facade of the celebration. Claire maintained her composure through it all, years of professional experience coming to her aid. As the last guest departed and the venue staff began cleanup, Lily and James approached Claire. James looked tired but happy. Lily's eyes held a question. "We're heading to the hotel," Lily said. "The flight to Aruba is at noon tomorrow." Claire nodded. The honeymoon. Another painful reminder of how this day should have been joyful and uncomplicated. "Are you going to be okay?" Lily asked quietly. Claire forced a smile. "I'll be fine. You focus on enjoying your honeymoon. We'll deal with everything else when you get back." James looked between them, sensing something amiss but tactfully not asking. "Thank you for everything, Claire. It was a beautiful wedding." After they left, Claire found herself alone in the venue's bridal suite, gathering Lily's few remaining items. She sat heavily on the small sofa, the weight of the day finally crushing her carefully maintained composure. Tears she had held back for hours finally spilled down her cheeks. A knock at the door made her quickly wipe her eyes. When she opened it, Vanessa stood there, looking as exhausted as Claire felt. "May I come in?" Vanessa asked hesitantly. Claire stepped aside, allowing Daniel's new wife to enter. The two women regarded each other warily, both victims of the same man's deception. "I didn't know," Vanessa said finally. "I swear to you, I had no idea Michael, Daniel, was married to you. He told me his wife died." Claire believed her. The shock on Vanessa's face when the truth was revealed had been too genuine to fake. "How long have you been married?" Claire asked. 5 years, Vanessa replied. "We met in Costa Rica where I was vacationing after my divorce. He seemed so genuine, a widower, raising a teenage daughter alone." She laughed bitterly. "Except his wife wasn't dead, and his daughter didn't even know he was alive." "Where is he now?" Claire asked. "Outside, waiting in the car. I told him I needed to speak with you alone." Vanessa twisted a ring on her finger, her wedding ring, Claire realized. "I don't even know if my marriage is legal, if he's still legally married to you." "We're going to need lawyers to sort this all out," Claire said, surprising herself with how calm she sounded. "But right now, I think we both deserve some answers about what he's been doing these past 10 years. Vanessa nodded. "He told me he works in financial consulting. We have a house in Rochester. Noah, our son, is in 2nd grade. Her voice broke. "Noah doesn't know anything about this. How do I tell my son his entire family history is a lie?" Claire felt a surprising surge of empathy for this woman. The same way I had to tell Lily her father was dead, one painful day at a time. The two women shared a look of understanding. Both had built lives around Daniel's lies. Both now faced the task of rebuilding around painful truths. "We should talk to him together," Claire suggested. "I think we'll get more honest answers that way." Vanessa nodded. "He's in the parking lot. I'll get him." While Vanessa stepped out, Claire gathered her strength. She had thought this chapter of her life was closed, the grief processed, the wounds healed into scars. Now those wounds were freshly opened, bleeding anew with betrayal deeper than she had ever imagined. When Daniel entered the bridal suite, Following behind Vanessa, Claire felt a confusing surge of emotions. There was the familiar ache of seeing the man she had once loved so deeply. There was white-hot anger at his deception. And there was something else, a strange detachment, as if she were observing a stranger who merely wore her husband's face. "Sit down," Claire instructed, gesturing to the sofa across from her. "Both of you." Daniel sat obediently, Vanessa beside him, though she maintained a noticeable distance. "I want the whole truth," Claire said firmly. "Every detail. Why did you really fake your death? What happened to the money? Where have you been for 10 years? And why come back now and risk everything?" Daniel took a deep breath. "The firm was under investigation. I'd been covering gambling losses with client funds. I thought I could replace it before anyone noticed, but the amounts kept growing. My partner, Thomas, figured out what I was doing and threatened to turn me in." Claire's mind flashed to Thomas Harrington, Daniel's business partner who had attended the funeral, who had hugged her and told her how much he would miss Daniel. "The sailing accident gave me a way out," Daniel continued. "I hired someone to help me disappear. New identity, new history, new start. I had put aside some cash, not much, but enough to get to Costa Rica and start over." "And Thomas?" Claire asked. "He must have known you stole that money." Daniel looked down. "Thomas took the fall for everything. With me dead, he couldn't prove I was responsible. He ended up serving 4 years. Claire felt sick. Not only had Daniel abandoned his family, but he had allowed his innocent business partner to go to prison for his crimes. "Whose money did you steal?" Claire asked, though something in her already knew the answer. Daniel couldn't meet her eyes. "Clients, investment accounts. My parents?" Claire's voice was barely a whisper. Daniel's silence was confirmation enough. "You stole my parents' retirement fund?" Claire stood, her hands shaking with rage. "They downsized their home because of you. My father had to go back to work at 68 because of you. They died thinking they had made poor investment choices. I didn't know how to face them," Daniel said weakly. "I thought it was better if they believed it was just bad luck." "Better for whom?" Claire demanded. "For them or for you?" Vanessa looked horrified. "You stole from Claire's parents? Your in-laws?" Daniel seemed to shrink under the weight of his confessions. "I'm not proud of what I did. Any of it." "What about the life insurance policy?" Claire asked suddenly. "I received a 500, zero payout after you were declared dead. Was that part of your plan too? To leave us some money to soften the blow?" Daniel shook his head. "No, that wasn't from the insurance company. The investigation froze our accounts. But Thomas felt guilty about what happened to you and Lily. He secretly arranged for that money to come to you from the firm's assets. He called it a death benefit so you wouldn't question it." Claire sat back down, stunned. The man who went to prison had been the one to ensure she and Lily were taken care of, not Daniel. "So you just started over?" Claire said flatly. "New name, new life, new family. Did you ever think about coming back?" Before seeing Lily's wedding announcement, Daniel hesitated, glancing at Vanessa. "Tell her the truth," Vanessa said coldly. "All of it. I came back to Buffalo a few times over the years," Daniel admitted. "I watched from a distance. I saw Lily graduate high school. I was at your mother's funeral, Claire." Claire felt her blood run cold. "You were at my mother's funeral? How dare you? How dare you stand there while I grieved, knowing you were the reason they struggled in their final years? I wanted to make sure you were okay," Daniel said lamely. "We were not okay," Claire snapped. "We were grieving you while you were spying on us like some kind of twisted voyeur." Vanessa stood suddenly. "I can't do this right now. I need to process all of this." She pulled off her wedding ring and placed it on the table between them. "I don't know who you are, but you're not the man I married. That man doesn't exist." She turned to Claire. "I'm staying at the Hampton Inn tonight. Here's my number if you want to talk." She handed Claire a business card. "I think we both have a lot to figure out." After Vanessa left, Claire and Daniel sat in heavy silence. The man across from her was both achingly familiar and completely foreign. The shape of his face, the way he ran his hand through his hair when stressed, those were the Daniel she had loved. But the choices he had made, the person revealed through his actions, was a stranger. "What do you want from us now?" Claire finally asked. "You've built a whole new life. You have a new wife, a son. Why risk all that by coming to the wedding? What did you expect would happen?" Daniel looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. "I don't know. I didn't think it through. When I saw Lily's engagement announcement, something just broke inside me. I've missed so much. Her first date, learning to drive, college. I guess I thought I could just see her one more time, from a distance. I didn't plan on her recognizing me." "But you brought Vanessa," Claire pointed out. "That wasn't just coming to observe from afar." Daniel sighed. "Vanessa suspected I was keeping something from her. She insisted on coming with me to this business associate's daughter's wedding. I couldn't tell her the truth, so I agreed, thinking we would just blend into the background." Claire shook her head in disbelief. The selfishness was staggering. "Where are you staying tonight?" she asked. "The same hotel as Vanessa, though I doubt she'll let me in the room," Daniel replied. "Good," Claire said flatly. You should experience just a fraction of the abandonment you inflicted on us." Daniel winced at her words. "Claire, I know you won't believe this, but I really did love you. I still don't." Claire cut him off sharply. "Don't you dare say you love me or Lily. Love doesn't do what you did. Love stays. Love faces consequences together. Love doesn't let someone else go to prison for their mistakes." She stood, gathering her purse and Lily's remaining items. "I'm leaving now. I suggest you do the same before the venue staff finds you here." "What happens now?" Daniel asked, standing as well. Claire looked at him, this ghost-made flesh who had shattered her world twice over. Now I go home and try to process the fact that the man I loved and grieved was a liar and a thief who let his business partner go to prison while he built a new family an hour away. "And tomorrow?" Daniel pressed. "Tomorrow I call a lawyer to find out if our marriage was ever legally dissolved or if you're a bigamist on top of everything else," Claire replied coldly. "And then I call the police. Because what you did, faking your death, identity fraud, those are crimes, Daniel." Daniel paled. "You would send me to prison? Why shouldn't I?" Claire challenged. "You let an innocent man go to prison for you. You stole from your clients, including my parents. You committed insurance fraud. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't report you." "Lily," Daniel said simply, "and Noah. Your daughter just found out her father is alive. My son doesn't even know about any of this yet. Please, Claire, give us some time to figure this out before you involve the authorities." Claire hesitated. As much as she wanted Daniel to face justice, she couldn't deny that the situation was complicated by the innocent people involved, especially the children. "1 week, she finally said. "You have 1 week to tell Noah the truth and to get your affairs in order. Then I'm going to the police." Daniel nodded, relief washing over his face. "Thank you. I'm not doing it for you," Claire said firmly. "I'm doing it for Lily and for your son, who didn't ask to be born into your web of lies." She walked to the door, then turned back one last time. "Oh, and Daniel, stay away from me and Lily until she gets back from her honeymoon. She deserves at least that much happiness before dealing with the mess you've made." The week after Lily's wedding passed in a blur for Claire. She spent most of it in a fog of disbelief, anger, and confusion. She had managed to keep the truth from most people, telling only Maggie the basics, that Daniel was alive and had returned unexpectedly. Maggie had been incredulous. "Alive? How is that possible? Where has he been all this time?" "Living another life," Claire had replied bitterly, "with another wife and a 7-year-old son." Maggie had hugged her tightly. "Oh, Claire, I can't even imagine what you're going through. What can I do?" "Just be here," Claire had answered. "I feel like I'm grieving him all over again, except this time I'm grieving the man I thought he was." Now, 6 days after the wedding, Claire sat in her kitchen staring at her phone. Tomorrow was her self-imposed deadline to report Daniel to the authorities. She had consulted with a lawyer who confirmed what she had suspected. Her marriage to Daniel had never been legally dissolved. There had been no divorce because she thought he was dead, which meant that Daniel's marriage to Vanessa was not legally valid. Her phone rang, startling her from her thoughts. It was Vanessa. "Claire, I hope I'm not bothering you." "No, it's fine," Claire assured her, finding it strange how comfortable she had become speaking with her husband's other wife over the past week. They had met twice for coffee, comparing notes on the man they both thought they knew. "I told Noah," Vanessa said, her voice strained, "about Daniel, Michael, whatever his name really is, about everything." Claire's heart ached for the little boy she had never met. How did he take it? "About as well as a 7-year-old can take, finding out his father has been living a double life and isn't really who he says he is," Vanessa replied with a sigh. "He's confused, angry. He keeps asking if his name is really Noah Pierce." "Is Daniel there with you?" Claire asked. "No, he's staying at a hotel. I told him I needed space." Vanessa paused. "Tomorrow is your deadline, isn't it, for going to the police?" "Yes," Claire confirmed. "I haven't changed my mind if that's what you're asking." "Actually," Vanessa said slowly, "I think you should report him. What he did was criminal. He deserves consequences." Claire was surprised. She had expected Vanessa to plead for leniency for Noah's sake. "What about Noah?" Claire asked. "I've explained to him that his father did something wrong and will need to face punishment," Vanessa said. "It won't be easy, but I won't teach my son that you can escape consequences if you're privileged enough." Claire felt a newfound respect for Vanessa. "Thank you for understanding. There's something else," Vanessa added. "I've been going through our finances. Daniel, Michael, has withdrawn large amounts of cash over the past few years. I think he's been preparing for this possibility, being discovered." Claire's suspicions rose. "You think he has a nest egg hidden somewhere?" "I'm almost certain of it," Vanessa confirmed. "I found references to a safety deposit box in Buffalo." After they hung up, Claire sat thinking. Daniel had always been meticulous about money, except, apparently, when gambling. If he had been preparing for discovery, he would have organized resources to escape again if necessary. The next morning, Claire drove to the police station. She had prepared a detailed statement with her lawyer, explaining everything she knew about Daniel's fake death, the embezzlement, and his new identity as Michael Pierce. The detective who took her statement was skeptical at first. "So you're saying your husband faked his death 10 years ago and has been living under a false identity an hour away?" "Yes," Claire said firmly. "His name is Daniel Bennett. He staged a boating accident on Lake Erie in 2013. He's been living as Michael Pierce in Rochester. And you have proof of this?" Claire placed a file on the detective's desk. "This contains our marriage certificate, his death certificate, photos of him from before his death, and recent photos from my daughter's wedding last week. Also statements from both myself and Vanessa Pierce, the woman he married while still legally married to me." The detective reviewed the materials, his expression growing more serious. "This is quite a story, Mrs. Bennett. If what you're saying is true, your husband has committed multiple felonies: fraud, identity theft, bigamy, possibly embezzlement." "I'm aware," Claire said. "I've also included the contact information for his former business partner, Thomas Harrington, who served prison time for financial crimes I believe Daniel committed." The detective nodded. "We'll need to coordinate with Rochester police to locate him. Do you know where he's staying?" Claire provided the name of Daniel's hotel. Part of her felt sick about what she was doing, sending the father of her child to prison. But a stronger part remembered the years of grief, the struggles to survive as a single mother, her parents dying without the comfortable retirement they had earned. Daniel had chosen this path with his actions. She was simply ensuring he faced the consequences. 3 days later, Claire received a call from the detective. "Mrs. Bennett, we've arrested Daniel Bennett, also known as Michael Pierce. He's been charged with multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, and bigamy. The FBI is also investigating the financial crimes angle." "Thank you for letting me know," Claire said, a complex mix of emotions washing over her. Relief, sadness, a strange sense of closure. "There's something else," the detective continued. "When we arrested him, he was at the airport with a suitcase full of cash and a passport under yet another name. It appears he was planning to flee." Claire wasn't surprised. The man she had once trusted with her life had proven himself a coward at every turn. Later that day, Lily called from her honeymoon. Claire had been dreading this conversation, not wanting to disrupt her daughter's trip, but Lily had seen the news online. "Mom, is it true? Did they arrest Dad?" Lily's voice was tight with emotion. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm sorry you had to find out from the news. Why didn't you tell me you were going to the police?" Lily asked, a hint of accusation in her tone. "I didn't want to ruin your honeymoon," Claire explained. "You deserved at least 2 weeks of happiness before dealing with this mess." Lily was quiet for a moment. "Is he going to prison?" "Probably," Claire admitted. "He committed serious crimes, Lily. Not just abandoning us, but stealing money, letting his partner go to prison in his place, creating a false identity, marrying another woman while still legally married to me." "I know," Lily said softly. "I'm not defending what he did. I just found out my father is alive, and now I might lose him to prison." Claire's heart ached for her daughter. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. None of this is fair to you. We're coming home," Lily decided. "James understands. This is too important." After hanging up, Claire sat with her thoughts. She had done what needed to be done, what was right, but the cost to her daughter and to Daniel's young son weighed heavily on her. She thought of Vanessa, another woman blindsided by Daniel's deceptions, now left to explain to her son why his father was in jail. On impulse, Claire dialed Vanessa's number. "Would you and Noah like to come over for dinner this weekend?" she asked when Vanessa answered. "Lily's cutting her honeymoon short. She'll be home tomorrow. I think it might be good for all of us to meet properly." Vanessa sounded surprised but grateful. "Are you sure? That seems like a lot for all of you to handle right now." "I'm sure," Claire said firmly. "We've all been victims of Daniel's lies. Maybe together we can start to make sense of everything." The dinner that weekend was awkward at first. Lily and James sat across from Vanessa and Noah, all of them stealing cautious glances at each other. Noah, a small boy with Daniel's dark hair and expressive eyes, clung to his mother's side, overwhelmed by meeting these strangers who were somehow family. Claire had prepared comfort food, lasagna, garlic bread, a simple salad, familiar flavors to ease the unfamiliar situation. "So," Lily began tentatively, looking at Noah. "You're my brother." Noah looked up at his mother uncertainly. Vanessa nodded encouragement. "Half-brother," Noah corrected seriously. "Mom explained that we have the same dad but different moms." Lily smiled gently. "That's right, and that makes me your big sister." Noah considered this. "I always wanted a sister." "Well, now you have one," Lily said, her voice warming. "And that means if you ever need anything, I'm here for you." James reached under the table to squeeze Lily's hand, silently supporting her through this surreal family dinner. The conversation gradually eased, focusing mostly on safe topics: Noah's school, Lily and James's abbreviated honeymoon, Claire's event planning business. They carefully avoided discussing Daniel, though his absence was the elephant in the room. Finally, as Claire served coffee and dessert, Vanessa addressed it directly. "I visited Daniel, Michael, yesterday," she said. "He's being held without bail because they consider him a flight risk." Claire nodded, unsurprised. "Did he say anything about why he was at the airport?" Vanessa looked down at her coffee cup. "He claims he panicked, that seeing you at the wedding made him realize everything would come crashing down." She hesitated. "He asked about all of you, about how Noah is doing, about Lily." Lily looked up. "What did you tell him?" "I told him the truth," Vanessa replied. "That we're all trying to make sense of the mess he created. That Noah is confused and hurt. That you cut your honeymoon short because of this." Claire watched her daughter's face, trying to gauge her reaction. Lily had always been close to Daniel before his death. Finding out he was alive had reopened wounds that had taken years to heal. "I want to see him," Lily said finally. "I have questions only he can answer." Claire nodded, understanding her daughter's need for closure, even as she worried about the additional pain such a meeting might cause. "I can arrange a visit," Vanessa offered. "They know me as his wife, even if that's not legally true." "Thank you," Lily said sincerely. She looked at Noah, who was quietly eating his chocolate cake. "Would you like to draw with me after dinner, Noah? I'm pretty good at dinosaurs." Noah perked up. "I love dinosaurs, especially T-Rex." As the evening wound down, Claire found herself in the kitchen with Vanessa, loading the dishwasher while Lily, James, and Noah looked through a photo album in the living room. "This is so strange," Vanessa said quietly. "A month ago, my life made sense. I thought I was married to a financial consultant named Michael Pierce. Now I find out my marriage isn't legally valid, my husband is a criminal, and I'm having dinner with his actual wife and daughter." Claire handed her a plate to load. "Life rarely goes according to plan. 10 years ago, I thought I was happily married to a successful investment manager. Then I was a widow. Now I don't even know what I am." "His legal wife," Vanessa said with a wry smile. "At least until you divorce him." "I've already filed the paperwork," Claire admitted. "It seems absurd to divorce a man I thought was dead for a decade, but here we are." Vanessa leaned against the counter. "I keep asking myself if there were signs, if I should have known something wasn't right." "I've been asking myself the same thing," Claire said. "But Daniel, or Michael, was always good at projecting what people wanted to see." They fell into silence, two women connected by the same man's betrayal, finding unexpected understanding in each other's company. In the living room, Noah had fallen asleep against Lily's side as she showed him old family photos. "He's exhausted," Vanessa said, approaching the sofa. "I should get him home." As they said their goodbyes, Claire felt a strange sense of purpose forming. These people, Vanessa, Noah, Lily, James, they were all collateral damage in Daniel's web of deception, but perhaps together they could forge something new from the broken pieces he had left behind. The next week, Lily visited Daniel in jail. Claire offered to go with her, but Lily insisted this was something she needed to do alone. When she returned, her eyes were red from crying, but there was a new resolve in her posture. "How was it?" Claire asked gently. Lily sat heavily on the sofa. "Harder than I expected. He looks old, defeated." She twisted her wedding ring absently. "He apologized over and over, kept saying he never meant to hurt us." She gave a bitter laugh. "As if that makes it better somehow." "Did you get the answers you were looking for?" Claire asked. Lily shook her head. "Not really. I asked why he never tried to contact us, even anonymously. He said he convinced himself we were better off without him." She looked at her mother. "Were we, Mom? Better off?" Claire considered the question carefully. "We survived," she said finally. "We built a good life. Would it have been easier with him? Maybe financially. But knowing what we know now about his character, about the lies he was capable of telling?" She shook her head. "I don't know if that would have been better." Lily nodded slowly. "He told me he used to watch me sometimes, from a distance. He saw me graduate high school, saw me go to my senior prom." Her voice cracked. "He was there, hiding in the background of my life all these years." Claire felt a chill. The idea of Daniel secretly observing them was disturbing on a visceral level. "Did he say anything else?" Claire asked. "He wants to plead guilty," Lily said, "to spare everyone a trial. His lawyer is negotiating with the prosecutor." She hesitated. "He also mentioned Thomas Harrington, his old business partner. He wants to make a full confession about the embezzlement to clear Thomas's name." Claire raised an eyebrow. "That's surprisingly decent of him. I think he's trying to do the right thing now," Lily said softly. "Too late, but still." The following month brought developments in Daniel's case. As promised, he pleaded guilty to multiple charges: fraud, identity theft, bigamy, and tax evasion. In exchange for his cooperation regarding the financial crimes at his former firm, the prosecutor recommended a reduced sentence. Claire received a call from a number she didn't recognize one evening. "Claire Bennett?" a man's voice asked when she answered. "Yes, who's calling?" "This is Thomas Harrington." Claire nearly dropped the phone. Thomas, Daniel's former business partner who had gone to prison for his crimes. Thomas, I don't know what to say, Claire stammered. I recently found out what Daniel did, how he let you take the blame. I know, Thomas interrupted. The FBI contacted me. They're reopening the investigation based on Daniel's confession. He paused. I wanted to thank you, Claire, for going to the authorities, for making him face consequences after all these years. You have nothing to thank me for, Claire insisted. I had no idea what he had done to you until recently. If I had known, you couldn't have known, Thomas said kindly. He fooled all of us. I just wanted to call and let you know that I don't blame you or Lily for any of it. I always wondered if you knew, if you were part of his scheme somehow, but seeing him arrested, hearing about how he abandoned you, I know now you were as much a victim as I was. The conversation left Claire reflective. Daniel's web of deception had ensnared so many lives, hers, Lily's, Thomas's, Vanessa's, Noah's. Each of them was now trying to rebuild around the crater his lies had left. That night, Claire sat in her garden, a glass of wine in hand, thinking about the strange turns her life had taken. She had rebuilt once, after Daniel's death. She could rebuild again, this time with the truth as her foundation. 1 year later, Claire sat in another courtroom, this time for Daniel's sentencing. After months of legal proceedings, cooperation with authorities, and testimony about the financial crimes at his former firm, the day of reckoning had arrived. Claire looked around the courtroom. Lily sat beside her, James having stayed home to give mother and daughter this time together. Vanessa sat across the aisle with her lawyer. Thomas Harrington, now cleared of many of the charges he had been convicted of, sat a few rows back. It struck Claire as surreal that they were all connected by the man in the orange jumpsuit who sat at the defendant's table. The judge entered, and everyone rose. Judge Patricia Mills, a stern-looking woman in her 60s, took her seat and reviewed the papers before her. In the case of the State versus Daniel Bennett, also known as Michael Pierce, this court is now in session for sentencing, she announced. Mr. Bennett has pleaded guilty to fraud, identity theft, bigamy, and tax evasion. He has cooperated with authorities in the investigation of embezzlement at Bennett Harrington Investments. She looked over her glasses at Daniel. Does the defendant wish to make a statement before sentencing? Daniel stood slowly, his shoulders slumped. A year in county jail awaiting sentencing had aged him further, the silver in his hair now dominant, deep lines etched around his eyes and mouth. Yes, Your Honor, he said, his voice steady despite his appearance. I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge the hurt I've caused to so many people through my actions. To my business partner Thomas, who spent years in prison for crimes I committed. To my wife Claire and our daughter Lily, who mourned me and rebuilt their lives, only to have me selfishly disrupt them again. To Vanessa and our son Noah, who believed the life we built together was honest and true. He paused, seeming to gather himself. There's nothing I can say to undo the damage I've done. I can only accept whatever punishment the court deems appropriate, and hope that someday, those I've harmed might find it in their hearts to forgive me, not for my sake, but for their own peace of mind. Judge Mills nodded, her expression unchanged by his words. Mr. Bennett, this court has reviewed your plea agreement and the prosecution's recommendation for a reduced sentence based on your cooperation. However, I must consider the extensive nature of your deception and the harm caused to multiple victims over many years. Claire held her breath. Whatever sentence Daniel received would impact not just him, but Noah, who was still trying to understand why his father wasn't coming home. It is the judgment of this court that you be sentenced to a term of 8 years in federal prison, with eligibility for parole after 4 years. You are also ordered to pay restitution to the victims of your financial crimes, including full repayment to the former clients of Bennett Harrington, whose investments you misappropriated. The judge continued with the details of the sentence, but Claire was watching Daniel's face. He showed no reaction beyond a slight nod, accepting his fate with a resignation that surprised her. The Daniel she had known would have fought, schemed, looked for an escape. This man seemed at peace with his punishment. After the sentencing, Claire and Lily stood in the courthouse hallway, processing what had happened. 4 years? Lily said quietly. He could be out in 4 years with good behavior. Claire nodded. How do you feel about that? Lily considered the question. Relieved, I think. It's long enough to be real punishment, but not so long that Noah will be grown before he gets out. She looked at her mother. What about you? I don't know, Claire admitted. Part of me thinks no sentence could make up for what he did, but another part just wants this chapter closed so we can all move forward. They spotted Vanessa speaking with her lawyer near the elevators. When she saw them, she excused herself and approached. 8 years, with parole possible in 4, she said as if confirming it to herself. Noah will be 11 by then. How is he doing? Lily asked. She had developed a genuine bond with her half-brother over the past year, spending time with him every few weekends. He has good days and bad days, Vanessa replied. He understands his father did something wrong and needs to be punished, but it's still hard on him, she sighed. I've started him with a therapist who specializes in children with incarcerated parents. It seems to be helping. Claire felt a surge of admiration for Vanessa's strength. You're doing an amazing job with him. Vanessa gave a tired smile. I'm trying. Some days are better than others. She checked her watch. I should go. Noah's getting out of school soon, and I want to be there to tell him about the sentencing myself before he hears it from someone else. After Vanessa left, Thomas Harrington approached, looking somewhat uncomfortable. Claire, Lily, he greeted them with a nod. I hope I'm not intruding. Not at all, Claire assured him. It's good to see you, Thomas. He shifted his weight nervously. I wanted to let you know that the settlement from the firm's insurance is finally being dispersed to the clients who lost money. Your parents' estate will receive full restitution, plus interest. Claire felt a pang at the mention of her parents, who had died never knowing the truth about their lost investments. Thank you for telling me. It's the least I could do, Thomas said. Your actions in reporting Daniel led to my name being cleared. I'll always be grateful for that. After leaving the courthouse, Claire drove to her lawyer's office. Today wasn't just about Daniel's sentencing. It was also the day her divorce would be finalized. The irony wasn't lost on her, legally ending a marriage she had thought concluded by death a decade ago. The paperwork was straightforward. Claire signed where indicated, officially dissolving her marriage to Daniel Bennett after 27 years, 10 of which she'd spent believing she was a widow. As she left the lawyer's office, divorce decree in hand, Claire felt a strange sense of closure. The last legal tie between her and Daniel had been severed. She was, for the first time in her adult life, truly on her own. Not a wife, not a widow, but simply Claire. That evening she sat in her garden with a glass of wine, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Her phone buzzed with a text from Lily. Just checking in. How are you feeling after everything today? Claire considered the question carefully before replying. Like I've finally put down a heavy weight I've been carrying for years. Sad for what was lost, but ready to move forward. She set her phone down and closed her eyes, feeling the warm evening breeze on her face. For the first time in a long time, the future felt wide open. The months that followed brought gradual healing and unexpected connections. Claire threw herself into her event planning business, focusing particularly on charity events that felt meaningful after everything she'd been through. Lily and James settled into married life, buying a small house not far from Claire's. Most surprisingly, Claire found herself developing a genuine friendship with Vanessa. What had begun as an alliance of necessity between two women betrayed by the same man evolved into something deeper. They met regularly for coffee, sharing the unique perspective of having loved and been deceived by Daniel Bennett. I filed the paperwork to legally change Noah's last name, Vanessa mentioned during one such meeting, 6 months after the sentencing. From Pierce to my maiden name, Chen. Claire nodded understanding. That makes sense. Pierce was never really his name anyway. He still visits his father once a month, Vanessa continued. The prison is 3 hours away, so it's a full-day trip. Lily came with us last time, which was nice for Noah. Claire was continually impressed by how Lily had embraced her role as Noah's big sister. Despite the painful circumstances of their connection, she had become a steady presence in the boy's life. How are your visits with Daniel? Vanessa asked carefully. Claire shook her head. I haven't been to see him. I don't think I ever will. He asks about you, Vanessa said. Every time I visit with Noah, what do you tell him? The truth, that you're doing well, that you've moved on with your life. Claire appreciated Vanessa's directness. There was no pretense between them, no social niceties that obscured the complex reality they shared. He's different in prison, Vanessa observed. More present, somehow, like he's not constantly looking over his shoulder or planning his next move. Perhaps having his secrets exposed was liberating in a way, Claire suggested. No more lies to keep straight, no more fear of discovery. Vanessa considered this. Maybe. Or maybe losing everything finally forced him to face himself. As the 1-year mark of Daniel's sentencing approached, Claire received a letter from him. She recognized his handwriting on the envelope and almost threw it away unopened. But curiosity won out. Dear Claire, he had written in his precise hand. I've written and rewritten this letter dozens of times, never finding the right words to express my remorse for the pain I've caused you. The truth is, there are no right words. What I did was unforgivable. He continued, explaining how prison had given him time to reflect on his choices, on the person he had become. He didn't ask for forgiveness or reconciliation, just acknowledged the harm he had done, and expressed gratitude that Claire and Lily had found happiness despite his actions. The greatest punishment isn't the prison sentence, he wrote near the end. It's knowing I threw away a life with you and Lily, a real, honest life, for nothing but selfish fear. I will regret that until my dying day. Claire folded the letter and placed it in her desk drawer. She had no intention of responding, but neither did she feel the need to destroy it. It was just another piece of the complicated puzzle that was her history with Daniel Bennett. That weekend, Lily came over to help Claire plant her spring garden. As they worked side by side, digging in the soft earth, Lily broached the subject of her father. "I visited Dad yesterday," she said, patting soil around a small herb plant. "He mentioned he wrote to you." "He did," Claire confirmed, not looking up from her work. "Are you going to write back?" Claire sat back on her heels, wiping her brow with the back of her gardening glove. "No, I don't think so. We don't have anything left to say to each other." Lily nodded, accepting her mother's decision. "He's working in the prison library, teaching some of the other inmates to read. He seems, I don't know, more authentic somehow." "Prison has a way of stripping away pretenses," Claire observed. "He asked about you," Lily said. "If you're happy." Claire considered the question, turning it over in her mind. Was she happy? Her life wasn't what she had imagined it would be all those years ago when she married Daniel. It was both less and more, less secure perhaps, less conventional, but more honest, more truly hers. "I'm at peace," she told her daughter. "That's better than happiness sometimes." Lily smiled, seeming to understand. "He told me something yesterday that stuck with me. He said, the hardest part wasn't losing my freedom. It was realizing how much I took for granted when I had it." Claire paused in her gardening. "That sounds like genuine insight." "I think it is," Lily agreed. "He's not the same person anymore. Neither are any of us." They continued planting in companionable silence, the garden taking shape under their care, new growth emerging from soil turned and prepared, just as their lives were taking new forms in the aftermath of Daniel's reappearance and imprisonment. Later that night, after Lily had gone home, Claire sat at her desk and reread Daniel's letter. Then, surprising herself, she took out a sheet of paper and began to write. "Daniel," she wrote, "I received your letter. I won't pretend that your words erase the harm you've caused, but I acknowledge your apology for what it is, an important step in your own journey." She wrote about her life now, about the event planning business she had built from nothing after his death, about her pride in the woman Lily had become despite the trauma of losing her father. She didn't sugarcoat the pain he had caused or offer easy forgiveness, but neither did she write with bitterness or rage. "The hardest part wasn't losing you," she concluded. "It was realizing I never really had you, not the real you. I hope prison gives you the time and perspective to find that person, for your own sake and for Noah's." She signed it simply Claire, sealed it in an envelope, and set it aside to mail in the morning. She didn't expect to start a correspondence, but completing this circle felt important, a final step in her own healing. 2 years after Daniel's sentencing, Claire stood in her kitchen preparing for a dinner party. Lily and James were coming, along with Vanessa and Noah. It was an unlikely family gathering, but they had all gradually found their way to a new normal. The doorbell rang, and Claire opened it to find Vanessa and Noah on her doorstep. Noah, now 9, held a small potted plant. "We brought this for you," he said, holding it out. "It's a peace lily. Mom said you like to garden." Claire smiled, accepting the gift. "It's beautiful, Noah. Thank you. Why don't you put it on the dining table where everyone can see it?" As Noah carried the plant inside, Vanessa handed Claire a bottle of wine. "He picked it out himself," she said quietly. "The plant, I mean," said it reminded him of Lily. Claire was touched by the thoughtfulness. "He's a wonderful boy. You've done an amazing job with him through all of this." Vanessa smiled. "He's resilient, more than I ever expected." She lowered her voice. "He had a good visit with Daniel last weekend. They're reading Harry Potter together. Daniel reads a chapter during the visit, and Noah continues from there at home." Claire nodded, appreciating how Vanessa always kept her informed about Noah's relationship with Daniel, even though Claire herself maintained distance from her ex-husband. Lily and James arrived soon after, bearing a dessert and good news. They were expecting their first child. "A baby!" Claire exclaimed, hugging her daughter tightly. "When?" "I'm only 8 weeks along," Lily said, beaming. "Due in early January." Noah looked excited at the announcement. "Does that mean I'm going to be an uncle?" Lily laughed. "Yes, technically you'll be this baby's uncle, even though you're younger." "Cool," Noah declared. "I've never been an uncle before." The dinner was warm and lively, the unlikely family they had formed celebrating Lily and James's news. As Claire looked around her table, at her daughter and son-in-law, at Vanessa, who had become a true friend, at Noah, who was both a reminder of Daniel's deception and a blessing in his own right, she felt a profound sense of grace. From the shattered pieces of betrayal, they had built something new and genuine. To new beginnings, she toasted, raising her glass, and a family, in all its complicated forms. 3 years after that fateful wedding day when Daniel had appeared like a ghost from the past, Claire stood outside the hospital room where Lily was in labor. James paced the hallway, alternately checking his watch and peering anxiously through the small window in the door. "The doctor said it could still be hours," Claire reminded him gently. "First babies often take their time." James nodded, running a hand through his already disheveled hair. "I know. I just feel so helpless out here." She wanted a few minutes alone to rest between contractions, Claire assured him. "You've been amazing support for her so far." The elevator doors at the end of the hall opened, and Vanessa emerged with Noah, now 10 years old and growing lanky. They had driven in from Rochester as soon as Lily called to say she was in labor. "Any news?" Vanessa asked, approaching with a small gift bag in hand. Claire shook her head. "Still waiting. The doctor thinks it'll be sometime this evening." Noah looked around the hospital corridor with curiosity. "Is the baby here yet?" "Not yet," Claire told him with a smile. "Babies take their time. Like when you're waiting for Christmas," James added, clearly trying to distract himself from his worry about Lily. They settled into the waiting room, making small talk about the drive-in, about Noah's recent science fair project, about the nursery Lily and James had prepared. The conversation flowed easily, the product of 3 years of carefully built relationships. Claire was just returning from a coffee run when she saw him. Daniel, standing uncertainly by the hospital information desk, looking older but healthier than when she had last glimpsed him at his sentencing 3 years earlier. He wore simple clothes, jeans, a button-down shirt, nothing like the orange jumpsuit she had last seen him in. She froze, coffee cups in hand, as their eyes met across the lobby. She had known this moment might come. Daniel had been released on parole 2 months ago after serving 4 years of his 8-year sentence. Lily had mentioned visiting him upon his release, but Claire had maintained her distance. Vanessa had spotted him too and was walking over, Noah at her side. The boy broke into a run when he recognized his father, and Daniel knelt to embrace him, his eyes closing briefly as he held his son. Claire approached slowly, uncertain of the protocol for this moment. How did one greet a man who had faked his death, built a second family, gone to prison, and was now free again? "Daniel," she said simply, stopping a few feet away. He straightened, keeping a hand on Noah's shoulder. "Claire, you look well." It was such an ordinary greeting for such an extraordinary situation that Claire almost laughed. "Thank you. You look better than the last time I saw you. Prison food isn't great, but they have a decent gym," he said with a weak attempt at humor. An awkward silence fell between them, broken by Noah's excited voice as he told his father about Lily's baby coming any minute now. "I'm going to be an uncle," he declared proudly. Daniel smiled down at his son. "That's wonderful, buddy." Vanessa stepped forward. "I told him Lily was in labor. He wanted to be here." Her tone was neutral, a simple statement of fact without judgment. Claire nodded her understanding. Despite everything, Daniel was still Lily's father, and this baby's grandfather. His desire to be present for this moment was natural, if complicated. "She's still in labor," Claire told him. "It could be hours yet." Daniel nodded. "I can wait, unless," he hesitated, "unless you'd rather I didn't stay." Claire considered this. She had long since processed her anger toward Daniel. The years of his imprisonment had given her time to rebuild her life completely separate from him. She felt no need to forgive him, but neither did she feel the burning rage that had once consumed her. "It's not up to me," she said finally. "It's Lily's day. If she wants you here, then you should stay." They returned to the waiting room, an unlikely group bound by complex ties. James joined them, shaking Daniel's hand with the cautious respect of a man meeting his father-in-law under the strangest of circumstances. "Lily's asking for her mom," he told Claire. "She's getting closer." Claire followed James back to the delivery room, leaving Daniel, Vanessa, and Noah in the waiting area. Inside, Lily was flushed and tired, her hair damp with sweat. "Mom," she said, reaching for Claire's hand. "Dad's here, isn't he?" "I thought I heard Noah's voice." Claire nodded, brushing Lily's hair back from her forehead. "Yes, he's in the waiting room with Vanessa and Noah." Lily closed her eyes as another contraction began. When it passed, she looked at her mother with determination. "I want him to meet the baby, after she's born. Not right away, but he should meet his granddaughter." Claire squeezed her daughter's hand. "Whatever you want, sweetheart, this is your day." Hours passed. Claire alternated between sitting with Lily and checking on the others in the waiting room. Daniel maintained a respectful distance, speaking mostly with Noah and occasionally with James when the anxious father-to-be came out for brief breaks. Finally, near midnight, the cry of a newborn echoed down the hall. James burst into the waiting room, his face a mixture of exhaustion and pure joy. "She's here! Sophia Claire Bennett, 7 pounds, 4 ounces. Lily's doing great." Congratulations filled the air. Vanessa hugged James warmly, and Noah peppered him with questions about what the baby looked like. Daniel stood slightly apart, his eyes suspiciously bright. "When can we see them?" Vanessa asked. "The nurse is just getting them settled," James explained. "Then family can visit briefly." An hour later, the nurse came to the waiting room. "Mrs. Bennett?" she called, looking at Claire. "Your daughter is asking for you." Claire stood, gathering her purse. The nurse looked around the waiting room. She said to bring her mother and Mrs. Pierce first, and then the others can come in small groups. Claire and Vanessa exchanged surprised glances. Lily wanted both mothers to come together. It was a small gesture, but a meaningful one, an acknowledgement of their shared place in this unconventional family. In the hospital room, Lily sat propped up against pillows, cradling a tiny bundle wrapped in a pink blanket. She looked exhausted but radiant, her face glowing with new motherhood. "Mom," she greeted Claire with a tired smile. "Vanessa, come meet Sophia." The two women approached the bed, peering at the newborn's tiny face. Perfect features, rosebud lips, a wisp of dark hair peeking from beneath a small cap. "She's beautiful, Lily," Claire whispered, emotion tightening her throat. "Absolutely perfect," Vanessa agreed, her eyes soft as she gazed at the baby who was, in a strange way, connected to her own son. Lily looked up at her mother. "Would you ask Dad to come in, just for a minute?" Claire nodded, surprised but willing to honor her daughter's request. She returned to the waiting room and approached Daniel. "Lily's asking for you," she said quietly. Daniel's eyes widened slightly. "For me?" "Yes, she wants you to meet the baby." He followed Claire back to the room, hesitating at the doorway as if uncertain of his welcome. Lily looked up and beckoned him in. "Dad," she said, using the title naturally despite the years of separation. "Come meet your granddaughter." Daniel approached slowly, his movements careful, almost reverent. He looked down at the infant in Lily's arms, and Claire saw tears well in his eyes. "Would you like to hold her?" Lily asked. Daniel seemed startled by the offer. "Are you sure?" Lily nodded, and James helped transfer the tiny bundle to Daniel's arms. He cradled the baby with surprising tenderness, a tear escaping down his cheek as he gazed at his granddaughter's face. "Hello, Sophia," he whispered. "I'm your grandfather." He looked up at Lily, raw emotion in his eyes. "Thank you for this. I don't deserve this second chance." Claire was struck by the sincerity in his voice. The man who had once run from responsibility, who had built his life on lies, was now humbly acknowledging his unworthiness of this simple grace, holding his granddaughter. Lily's response was quiet but firm. "No, you don't, but she deserves to know her family, all of it, broken parts and all." The wisdom in her daughter's words brought tears to Claire's eyes. Lily understood something profound, that family connections, even damaged ones, were part of little Sophia's heritage. That healing didn't require forgetting the past, but it did mean not allowing the pain to determine the future. Daniel returned the baby to Lily's arms, stepping back to allow others their turn to meet the newest member of their complicated family. Noah came in with Vanessa, his eyes wide with wonder as he met his little niece. "She's so tiny," he marveled. "Were you this small when you were born?" "Even smaller," Lily told him with a smile. "You'll be a wonderful uncle, Noah." As the brief visits continued, Claire found herself standing next to Daniel in the hallway outside Lily's room. "She's an amazing woman, our daughter," Daniel said quietly. "So much stronger than I ever was." Claire nodded. "Yes, she is. She's been through a lot, but it hasn't hardened her. That's rare." Daniel glanced at Claire. "You did that. You raised her to be strong and compassionate, even after what I put you both through." "I did my best," Claire said simply. "Better than your best," Daniel countered. "I see it in how she navigates all of this. The complexity, the broken pieces. She got that from you, not from me." They fell silent, two people who had once shared a life, now connected only through their daughter and the new life she had brought into the world. "What will you do now?" Claire asked eventually. "After prison?" Daniel sighed. "I'm starting over. Again. But honestly this time. I have a job at a bookstore. Nothing fancy, but it's work. I'm renting a small apartment near Noah's school so I can see him regularly." He paused. "And I'm continuing with therapy, learning to live without the lies." Claire appreciated his honesty. "That sounds like a good start." "It's strange," Daniel admitted. "I spent so many years running from who I was, creating new identities, that sometimes I'm not sure I know who Daniel Bennett really is anymore." "Perhaps that's the real work ahead of you," Claire suggested. "Not just rebuilding a life, but discovering who you are without the deceptions." Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "You always did see things clearly." A few days later, Claire helped Lily and James settle into their home with baby Sophia. The nursery was ready, painted a soft sage green with a crib, changing table, and rocking chair arranged beneath a mobile of stars and moons. As Lily placed the sleeping infant in her crib for the first time, Claire noticed a new photo frame on the dresser. It contained a picture taken at the hospital, Lily and James in the center holding Sophia, flanked by Claire on one side and, to Claire's surprise, Daniel, Vanessa, and Noah on the other. Lily followed her gaze. "Is it okay? The photo with Dad in it?" Claire studied the image, the expanded, imperfect family. Despite all the pain and betrayal that had brought them to this point, there was something genuine in the moment captured. Not a perfect family by any conventional standard, but real people doing their best to heal and move forward together. "It's more than okay," Claire assured her daughter. "It's honest. And that's what Sophia deserves. Truth, even when it's complicated." Lily smiled, relief evident in her expression. "I thought so too. I want her to know her whole family, even the messy parts. I don't want secrets or lies shaping her life the way they shaped mine. Looking at the photograph, Claire reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From the shock of seeing Daniel at the wedding 3 years ago to this moment of fragile peace, there was no perfect resolution to what he had done, no way to erase the years of deception and pain, but perhaps there was a way forward that acknowledged the past without being imprisoned by it. As if reading her thoughts, Lily said softly, "Sometimes the happy ending isn't what you imagined. Sometimes it's finding peace with a truth you never wanted." Claire put her arm around her daughter, both of them watching the sleeping infant, a new generation untouched by the past yet connected to all of it. "You're getting very wise in your old age," she teased gently. Lily leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. "I had a good teacher." 3 months later, Claire hosted a small gathering at her home to celebrate Sophia's baptism. It was a sunny spring day, her garden in full bloom, the house filled with the scent of lilacs and freshly baked bread. The guest list was small, just the immediate family in all its unconventional forms. Lily and James arrived with Sophia, now a chubby, smiling infant. Vanessa and Noah came bearing gifts. Daniel arrived last, looking slightly uncomfortable but determined to be present. They gathered in Claire's living room, surrounded by photographs that told the story of their lives. Lily as a child, Claire with her parents, newer images of Noah and Sophia, a visual testament to a family fractured and partially mended. As they prepared to leave for the church, Claire found herself alone with Daniel for a moment in the kitchen. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for including me today." Claire considered her response carefully. "Lily wanted you here, and I've learned that holding on to anger only hurts the person holding it." Daniel nodded, understanding what she was and wasn't saying. She hadn't forgiven him, exactly, but she had moved beyond allowing his actions to dictate her life. "I know I can never make up for what I did," he said, "but I'm trying to be better now, to be honest even when it's hard." "I believe you are," Claire said, and surprisingly she did. The Daniel she had known, the man who had faked his death and abandoned his family, would never have admitted fault or sought to change. This man, humbled by consequences, seemed genuinely different. The church ceremony was brief but meaningful. Afterward, they returned to Claire's house for lunch in the garden. Claire watched as Noah showed his little niece a butterfly that had landed on the lilac bush, as Vanessa and Lily exchanged recipes, as James and Daniel found common ground discussing a book they had both read recently. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments of awkwardness, undercurrents of past pain, but there was also something authentic in their attempts to create a new type of family from the wreckage of the old. As the afternoon waned, Claire found herself sitting on the porch swing watching Daniel push Sophia in the small infant swing James had set up in the yard. The sight was bittersweet. A grandfather playing with his granddaughter, a normal scene made extraordinary by the circumstances that had led to it. Vanessa joined her on the swing, following her gaze to Daniel and Sophia. "It's strange, isn't it, seeing him with her?" Claire nodded. "Life takes unexpected turns." "That's an understatement," Vanessa said with a laugh. "If someone had told me 3 years ago that I'd be sitting here with my husband's other wife, watching him play with our daughter's baby, I'd have called them insane. And yet, here we are," Claire mused. They sat in companionable silence, two women who had found an unlikely friendship in shared experience. "He's trying," Vanessa said after a while. "With Noah, with Lily, with being honest." She glanced at Claire. "He still loves you, you know." Claire shook her head. "He loves the idea of me, of the life we had. But that's not the same thing." "Maybe," Vanessa conceded, "but I think prison gave him time to realize what was real and what wasn't in his life. And your marriage, before he ruined it, that was real." Claire watched as Daniel carefully pushed the infant swing, his face gentle as he spoke to Sophia. She thought about the young man she had fallen in love with decades ago, the life they had planned together, the betrayal that had shattered it all. "Some things, once broken, can't be put back together," she said finally. "But that doesn't mean we can't build something new from the pieces." As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the garden, Claire looked at the unlikely gathering of people who constituted her family now. People connected by blood, by marriage, by shared history, by forgiveness and its limits, by the daily choice to move forward together despite the pain of the past. It wasn't the family she had imagined when she married Daniel all those years ago. It wasn't the life she had planned. But as she watched her daughter cradling her infant granddaughter, surrounded by people making the difficult, daily choice to heal rather than harm, Claire felt a profound sense of gratitude. Sometimes the happy ending isn't what you imagined. Sometimes it's finding peace with a truth you never wanted. And sometimes, that peace is enough. What would you do if someone you mourned for years suddenly reappeared in your life? How far would you go to rebuild trust after the ultimate betrayal? These are questions that Claire, Lily, and even Vanessa had to face in their journey through shock, anger, and eventual healing. Life rarely follows the paths we expect. Relationships break, people disappoint us, and sometimes the truths we discover shake the very foundations of our world. But as Claire's story shows, even from the deepest betrayals, we can find our way to a new kind of peace, not by forgetting the past, but by refusing to let it determine our future. Thank you for joining us for this journey through one family's extraordinary path to redemption. Until next time, remember that even the most shattered pieces can form something new, something honest, something real, if we have the courage to gather them up and begin again.